The wind was sharp that night, cutting through the ruined city like a knife. The old buildings stood broken, their walls black from fire, their windows shattered. The streets were filled with silence, broken only by the sound of weak footsteps. Widow walked slowly through the cold, her arms shaking as she carried her small daughter. The girl's face was pale, her lips blue, and her little feet hung bare, turning purple from the freezing air. The child made no sound, no cry, only a soft breath, as if life itself was slipping away. The widow whispered again and again, "Hold on, my little one, hold on, my star." Her voice cracked, her eyes filled with tears, but she kept moving, searching for anyone who would show mercy. Around her, the alien crowd moved like shadows. They saw her, they saw the child, but they turned away. No one wanted to look too long. No one wanted to feel the weight of pity. She begged at doors. She knelt on broken stone, her hands reaching out, but every door closed, every eye looked elsewhere. "Please," she cried, her voice breaking in the empty street. "My daughter is dying. She needs food. She needs warmth." Her words fell into the night like snow that melts on stone. Unseen, unwanted, forgotten. The widow's heart was heavy with shame. She had nothing left. No coin, no home, no husband. War had taken everything, and now even her child's breath was slipping away. She pressed her lips to her daughter's cold forehead, and her soul broke with fear. Then, through the smoke and dust, a human soldier stepped into the street. His boots struck the ground with weight, his rifle on his back, his eyes sharp and watching. The crowd moved away from him, whispering in fear humans were not saviors here. They were conquerors. But the widow did not care. Her child's life was worth any risk. She fell to her knees before him. The soldier stopped, his shadow falling over her and the little girl. He looked down, his face unreadable, his breath showing. In the cold air with trembling lips she spoke, "Just one hot meal for my daughter. I'll be yours tonight." The words cut her soul like a blade, but she forced them out. Her pride, her honor, none of it mattered now. Only the child, only her little girl. The soldier did not move. He only stared, his hand slowly tightening on the strap of his weapon. His eyes shifted from the mother to the child's purple feet, hanging like frozen stones. The silence was heavy. The crowd had stopped to watch from a distance, their whispers low and cruel. "Look at her, begging." "A human," someone muttered. "She is lost," another hissed. The widow heard every word, but she did not raise her head. Her daughter's breath grew weaker, her tiny chest rising and falling like the wings of a dying bird. The widow shook her head in despair, pressing her forehead to the soldier's boots. "I beg you," she whispered. "Please, she cannot last till morning." The soldier's jaw clenched. His breath came out slow, his eyes dark. For a long moment he seemed carved of stone, unshaken by her tears. And then, very faint, something flickered in his eyes. A shadow of memory, a wound of his own. The widow did not see it, but the silence told her everything. This man was not like the others. Still, the soldier said nothing. The air grew colder. The crowd stepped farther back. The widow trembled, her arms weak, her child slipping lower. Her voice broke as she whispered again, "Take me, but save her, please save her." The soldier's fingers brushed the grip of his weapon. His gaze stayed on the child, on her bare purple feet. The world seemed to hold its breath. Would he walk away as all others had? Would he take what she offered and leave the child to fate? Or would he choose something else, something dangerous, something forbidden? The widow raised her head at last, her face wet with tears, her lips shaking. She searched the soldier's eyes for mercy, for anything at all. But what she saw there made her blood freeze. His eyes were cold, but deep inside them was something harder, something hidden, the kind of choice that could change everything. The soldier leaned forward, his shadow falling heavy on the child's face. His lips parted, ready to speak. The widow clutched her daughter close, her heart beating like thunder in her chest, and then the soldier whispered only one word, low and sharp, the kind of word that would decide their fate. The widow held her breath, her child limp in her arms. The soldier's shadow covered them both, heavy like iron. For a moment he said nothing, and the silence was louder than thunder. Then, instead of taking her offer, instead of reaching for her with greedy hands, he knelt down. His rough fingers touched the girl's ankle, cold as stone, purple as frostbite. He frowned, and his jaw tightened. The widow dared not move, dared not even breathe. She expected the worst. But what came next was something she had never imagined. The soldier pulled something from his pack, a small wrapped bundle, still warm. The smell of cooked meat and bread escaped into the cold air. The widow's eyes widened, her stomach twisting with hunger, but she did not dare snatch it, not yet. The soldier tore the food in half and pushed the softer piece into the widow's trembling hands. "Feed her," he said in a low voice. Just 2 words. Nothing more, but enough to make the widow's heart break. Her hands shook as she pressed the bread to her daughter's lips. The little girl opened her mouth weakly, chewing slow, tears shining in her dull eyes. Life returned in tiny sparks, like embers glowing in the ashes of a dead fire. The widow sobbed, her tears falling on the bread. She wanted to thank him, to kiss his boots, but she bit her tongue. The crowd was still watching, and every eye was filled with poison. Aliens whispered, "He helps her." Humans nearby tightened, their grips on their weapons, their eyes sharp with suspicion. One soldier stepped forward, his face twisted in disgust. "Why waste food on her kind?" he spat. "She is not our concern. She is nothing." The widow froze, clutching her child tighter. Her heart thudded in terror. Would they take the bread away? Would they punish her? The soldier who had given the food stood tall. His eyes turned to the man who had spoken, cold and hard. "Stand down," he said flatly. The other soldier sneered, but did not push further. The command in that voice was enough to silence him. Still, the whispers grew, a storm building. The widow could feel the danger thick in the air. When the bread was gone, the child's breathing grew steadier. Her tiny hands clung weakly to her mother's torn clothes. Hope flickered in the widow's chest, fragile but alive. But with that hope came new fear. Humans did not give without reason. Why had this one done so? What did it mean? The soldier turned back to her, his face unreadable. "You will keep her quiet," he said, voice low so only she could hear. "You will not speak of this, not to anyone." The widow nodded quickly, too frightened to ask questions. She thought he might leave then, walk away and disappear into the shadows. But instead, another voice cut through the night. Harsh and commanding report. A human commander stepped from the smoke, his uniform sharp, his eyes burning with suspicion. Behind him came 2 more soldiers, their rifles ready. The widow's heart froze. The commander had seen. He had heard. There was no escape now. The commander's gaze fell on the widow, on the crumbs of bread clinging to her daughter's lips, then his eyes locked on the soldier who had given it. His voice was like fire. "Explain yourself." The soldier stood still, his body straight, his hands behind his back. No fear showed on his face, but inside his chest a storm raged. The widow lowered her head, holding her daughter close. She prayed he would not betray her, prayed he would not say her name. The commander stepped closer, his boots striking the stone like drums. "You fed her," he hissed. "You gave her our rations." The silence stretched, heavy, sharp. The other soldiers smirked, waiting to see how their comrade would fall. At last, the soldier spoke. Calm, cold, steady. "She was dying in the street, sir. It was mercy, nothing more." The commander's lip curled. "Mercy." He spat the word like poison. "Mercy is weakness, and weakness is death. You know the law. Human food is not for them." The soldier said nothing, his face carved from stone, but his hand brushed against the strap of his rifle. A small gesture, a silent warning. The widow felt her heart race. She could see the commander's fury, feel the heat of it. She knew this choice could end in blood. Would the soldier fight for them, or abandon them to save himself? The commander raised his hand slowly, his voice sharp. "You will be punished for this." The soldier's eyes narrowed, a flicker of defiance in his gaze. The crowd of aliens and humans leaned closer, hungry for the outcome. The widow clutched her child, Tighter, her breath quick and shallow. The cold seemed to vanish, replaced by fire and fear. The soldier's choice was not finished. The bread was only the beginning. Now he stood at the edge of a blade. One wrong move, and all three of them would be cut down. And as the commander's hand fell toward his weapon, the soldier made his move. The commander's hand hovered above his weapon, the street frozen in silence. The widow bent low, shielding her child, waiting for the sound of gunfire. The soldier stood tall, his eyes locked on his superior, his jaw hard as iron. For one long breath, nothing moved. Then the soldier stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. "She is weak, sir. She would not last the night. She poses no threat." The commander narrowed his eyes, his mouth curling into a cruel smile. "No threat," he repeated, his tone heavy with scorn. "To feed her is treason, to defend her is betrayal." The widow's heart hammered in her chest, her child stirring weakly in her arms. She thought the soldier would fall then, punished, beaten, perhaps shot in the street. But the soldier did. Something none expected, he saluted, his face like stone. "If mercy is treason, then I will carry that weight," he said. The commander's smile vanished, replaced by rage. He struck the soldier across the face with his glove, the sound echoing like a whip. "Watch yourself," the commander hissed. "One mistake. And you'll join the slaves." The soldier did not flinch, he turned his head slowly back, his eyes burning with something dark, something unspoken. The widow saw it, not fear, not shame, but defiance hidden deep. The commander gave a sharp order. The patrol moved on, their laughter cruel and sharp in the night. When they were gone, the widow looked up at the soldier, trembling. You saved us," she whispered. The soldier shook his head. "Not yet," he said quietly. "You are not safe, they are watching." He knelt beside her, his voice low so only she could hear. "Take the child. Hide her away. Do not let her. Cry if they hear her, you are finished." The widow nodded, clutching her daughter close, her tears falling fast. But her heart was torn. Why would a human risk himself for them? She wanted to ask, but his eyes told her not to. Some answers were too dangerous even to speak aloud. That night she slipped into an abandoned house, its roof broken, its walls cracked with holes. She laid her daughter on a pile of rags, covering her with her own torn shawl. The child coughed, weakly, her chest rattling like dry leaves. The widow pressed her lips to the girl's forehead, her heart breaking. "Stay with me, my star, stay with me," she whispered. But she had nothing. No food, no fire, no medicine. Only hope, thin as a thread. Hours passed, the city quiet except for the crunch of human boots in the night. Patrols searched the streets, their lamps cutting through smoke and darkness. Every shout, every step made the widow's heart leap in fear. Then a soft knock came at the broken door. Her blood turned to ice. She held her daughter close, whispering, "Silent, please, silent." The knock came again, softer, a rhythm like a signal. She hesitated, then opened the door, just a crack. The soldier stood there, his face half in shadow. In his hand he carried a small pouch. "Take it," he whispered. "Medicine, stolen from the infirmary." Her eyes widened, her hands shaking as she took it. Inside was a vial of liquid, precious as gold. "You risked everything," she breathed. He shook his head. "She deserves a chance," he said, "and so do you." The widow's throat tightened, tears filling her eyes. She wanted to thank him, to call him savior, but the words stuck. Humans were conquerors, not saviors, and yet here was one breaking his own law. He knelt beside the child, watching her chest rise and fall. "She is strong," he murmured, "stronger than she looks, but she must not make a sound. The patrols are close." And then, as if fate wanted to test them, the child coughed, a sharp, dry sound that cut through the silence like a blade. The widow froze, covering her daughter's mouth, her eyes wide with terror. Outside, boots scraped against stone, voices whispered. "Did you hear that?" one soldier said. "Over here." Another hissed. The widow's heart stopped. The soldier looked at her, his jaw tight, his eyes blazing. With urgency, "Do not move," he whispered, his hand already on his weapon. The voices grew louder, steps approaching the broken house. The widow clutched her child, her whole body shaking. The soldier pressed his back to the wall, rifle raised outside. A lamp's glow spread across the street, light creeping under the broken door. "Sound came from here," a soldier muttered, his voice eager for blood. The widow pressed her lips to her daughter's hair, whispering prayers. Without words, the footsteps stopped just outside. The latch of the door began to move. Slow, creaking. The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. The widow squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the end. And then the door creaked open. The widow's breath caught, and the child whimpered against her chest. The soldier stood ready, his rifle raised, his eyes fixed on the shadow crossing the doorway. The patrol stepped inside, two men with hard faces and cruel eyes, their lamps cutting through the darkness. "What's this?" one muttered, shining his light across the broken room. The widow held her child tighter, praying the shadows would hide them. But the soldier moved first, stepping into the light with calm steps. His face was cold, his voice sharp. "I claimed them," he said. The two men froze, confusion spreading on their faces. "You what?" one asked, narrowing his eyes. "I claimed them," the soldier repeated, his tone hard and sure. "The woman and the child, they belong to me now." The patrolmen exchanged looks, one sneered. "Why would you want them?" he hissed. The soldier's eyes darkened. "That's my concern, not yours. Stand down." The men hesitated, suspicion heavy in their gaze, but no one wanted to challenge him openly. Not here. Not now. With a grunt, they spat on the ground and left, slamming the door behind them. The widow sank to the floor, her legs weak, her arms clutching the child like a shield. She looked up at the soldier, her eyes wide with shock. "You claimed us," she whispered, her voice trembling. The soldier's gaze softened for just a moment. "It was the only way," he said. "They won't stop watching. But now you belong to me, and that makes you untouchable for a while." The widow lowered her head, shame and relief fighting in her chest. She had once offered herself in desperation, a bargain born of hunger and fear. But now he had reversed it, taking her under his protection without asking anything in return. Her heart ached with gratitude. She could not speak. The soldier turned away, his shoulders heavy. "You must be careful," he warned. "Every eye is on us now. If you draw attention, they will question me. And if they question me too much, all of us will burn." Rumors spread quickly in the city, faster than smoke on the wind. By morning, whispers filled the market. A human soldier claimed an alien widow, some said with disbelief. "Impossible," others muttered. "He has broken the order." The widow felt the stares wherever she went, their eyes like knives in her back. But she held her child close, reminding herself that warmth had returned to her daughter's body, the purple fading from her tiny feet. That alone was enough to endure the poison in their whispers. The soldier walked beside her in silence, his presence both shield and chain. He gave her scraps of food, scraps of medicine, never asking for anything. But the more he gave, the more the danger grew. Other humans began to notice, their suspicions sharp. Other aliens began to whisper, their jealousy bitter, and in the shadows betrayal took root. One night, as the widow tended to her sleeping child, a voice slipped through the cracks of the broken wall. "They watch you," it hissed. "They will not allow this kindness to last." She looked up, startled, but saw only the darkness beyond the wall. The voice whispered again, "You think he protects you, but he has made you a target. You and your child will pay." The words cut, deep cold fear twisting her stomach. She pressed close to her daughter, wishing the soldier were there, wishing his calm strength could shield her from unseen eyes. The next day, soldiers arrived at the marketplace, their boots striking like hammers. They marched straight toward her, their faces grim, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. The widow's blood ran cold. She clutched her daughter and tried to run, but hands grabbed her, rough and merciless. Dragging her to the ground, her child screamed, reaching for her, but the soldiers pulled them apart. "No," she cried. "Please don't take her. She's only a child." Her pleas were ignored. Chains bit into her wrists, iron cold against her skin. The crowd gathered, their eyes bright with cruel curiosity. "See," someone whispered. "The commander was right. She is a curse." The widow struggled, her voice hoarse. "Where is he? Where is the soldier?" But no answer came, only laughter, only the sharp pull of chains. The soldiers dragged her through the dirt, her daughter's cries fading behind. Every step tore her heart apart. Every sound of her child's scream was a blade twisting inside her. When they reached the center of the square, the commander stood waiting. His smile was cold, sharp as steel. "You thought you could hide under his shadow," he said, his voice loud for all to hear. "You thought mercy would protect you. But mercy is weakness, and weakness has no place here." The widow shook her head, tears streaming, her voice breaking. "He only saved a child. Is that weakness?" The commander raised his hand, silencing her. "It is rebellion," he said, "and rebellion must be crushed." The widow's knees gave way, despair crushing her. She searched the crowd, searching for the soldier's face, but he was nowhere. Her daughter's cries echoed faint in the distance, a sound that shattered her soul. The chains rattled. The commander's eyes burned with victory. The widow bowed her head, whispering to herself, "Forgive me, my star, forgive me if I cannot save you." But as the commander raised his weapon, ready to end her life, a shadow moved at the edge of the crowd. Boots struck the stone, heavy, sure. The soldier stepped forward, his rifle in his hand, his eyes blazing with fire. The widow knelt in chains, her child's screams echoing from somewhere beyond the square. Her wrists bled where the iron bit into her skin. Her tears fell onto the cold stone beneath her. The commander stood above her, his weapon drawn, his voice sharp and cruel. "This is the price of weakness," he declared, his words meant for the crowd. "She is proof that kindness is poison, and those who protect her are traitors," the crowd murmured, some with fear, some with hunger for blood. The widow lowered her head, her heart broken, her thoughts only on her child. "Stay alive, my star," she whispered. "Stay alive until I can reach you." Her voice was so faint it was almost a prayer carried by the wind. Then a shadow split the crowd, heavy footsteps striking the stone with purpose. The soldier stepped forward, his rifle across his chest, his eyes locked on the commander. The murmurs grew louder, shock spreading through the faces of humans and aliens alike. The commander sneered, his lip curling. "You," he hissed. "The one who claimed her, the one who dares to shame us." The soldier did not flinch, his voice steady. "Release her," he said. "She has done nothing, she is no threat." The commander laughed, the sound sharp as a blade. "No threat," he spat. "A woman who poisons our ranks with pity? A child who steals our food? A soldier who betrays his oath?" He raised his weapon, pointing it first at the widow, then at the soldier. "Do you see what you've done? Your loyalty is not to her. It is to us, to our command." The widow trembled, fear crushing her chest. She wanted to scream for him to leave, to save himself, but no words came. The soldier stood firm, his eyes never leaving the commander. "You speak of loyalty," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "But loyalty without humanity is nothing but chains." The commander's face twisted in rage. "Then chains you shall have," he shouted. "Seize him." Soldiers rushed forward, rifles raised, their boots pounding like drums. The widow cried out, "No, please!" But her voice was drowned by the roar of steel. The soldier moved like fire, his rifle swinging, his fists striking. The square erupted into chaos, the crowd scattering, screams, filling the night. The widow pulled against her chains, desperate to reach her child. But the iron held her, tearing her wrists raw. The commander shouted orders, his voice cracking with fury. "Burn them out! Burn them all!" Torches were thrown, fire spreading across the market stalls. Wood cracked, flames climbed high, smoke choked the air. The night became a storm of fire and ash. Through the chaos, the soldier fought, his body. Moving with relentless force, he struck down one man then another, but there were too many. The widow's heart shattered as she saw him bleed, his shoulder torn by a blade. Still he pressed on, reaching her through the smoke. With one powerful swing he smashed the lock of her chains. The iron fell, her wrists free at last. "Run," he ordered, his voice hoarse but firm. The widow clutched her daughter's shawl close to her chest, though her child was still lost. "I cannot," she cried. "Not without her." The soldier's eyes blazed. "We will find her, but not if you die here." Together they stumbled through the burning square, flames licking at their heels. The commander's voice roared above the chaos. "Do not let them escape. Kill them both." Bullets cracked through the night, sparks flying as they struck stone. The widow and soldier ducked behind a wall, smoke stinging their eyes. Her heart pounded in terror, her ears ringing with the cries of the crowd. Then, a sound pierced through the fire, small and desperate. "Mother." The widow's blood turned to ice, her eyes wide. She spun toward the sound, beyond the flames, beyond the smoke. Her daughter's voice, weak but alive. The soldier grabbed her arm. "Stay down," he growled. But she pulled away, her body burning with a mother's fury. "She's there, I hear her," she cried, stumbling into the fire. The soldier cursed, under his breath, but followed, his rifle ready. Through the flames they saw her. The child trapped in the arms of another soldier, her small feet kicking, her screams sharp. The widow's voice broke. "No, give her back." The man laughed, lifting his weapon toward the girl. "Orders are orders," he sneered. The widow collapsed in horror, her voice a raw scream. The soldier's eyes turned to fire. His body, moving before thought, he crashed into the enemy, his rifle smashing against the man's skull. The child fell free, the widow catching her in trembling arms. She held her close, sobbing. "I have you, my star. I have you." But the fire spread, faster, the walls around them groaning, ready to collapse. The soldier grabbed the widow's arm, pulling her toward the alley. The commander's voice bellowed from behind. "You cannot run forever." The widow stumbled through the smoke, clutching her child. The soldier stayed close, his body shielding them from the bullets that chased. They burst from the square into the dark streets, the fire raging behind them. The night air burned their lungs, but they were alive. The widow looked back at the flames, her voice breaking. "They will never stop." The soldier's jaw tightened, his eyes cold. "Then neither will I," he said. But behind them, the commander stood among the fire, his face lit by the flames. His eyes locked on them, filled with fury and hunger for blood. "This is not the end," he growled. And in that fire-lit square, his promise burned as bright as the flames. The streets burned behind them, smoke rising like black clouds into the night. The widow stumbled through the shadows, her daughter clutched tight against her chest. The soldier moved beside them, his rifle ready, his face set like stone. Every sound, every footstep in the distance made their hearts race. The child stirred weakly, her small voice cracked. "Mother," she whispered, "I am so tired." The widow pressed her lips to the girl's forehead, fighting back tears. "Stay with me, my star, stay with me." The soldier's eyes flicked to them, his jaw tightening. He said nothing, but his silence was heavy, filled with thoughts he dared not speak. They crossed through ruins, broken walls, and shattered homes. The night wind carried the echo of human boots, the hunt still on their trail. The soldier led them into an old factory, its roof half collapsed, its floor covered in ash. "This will do for now," he murmured. "Rest here, but be ready to move." The widow lowered her daughter onto a bed of rags, brushing hair from her pale face. For the first time, she looked at the soldier fully, her eyes full of questions. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why risk yourself for us?" The soldier did not meet her gaze. He stared into the dark. "Because I remember," he said at last, his voice low. The widow tilted her head, confusion in her eyes. "Remember what?" she whispered. He tightened his grip on his rifle, his voice rough. "A child I could not save." Silence filled the factory, broken only by the crackle of fire outside. The widow lowered her eyes. her heart heavy with both sorrow and gratitude. In that moment she understood. He was not just protecting them. He was fighting ghosts of his own. She reached out, her trembling hand resting lightly on his arm. "You saved her tonight," she whispered. "You saved my daughter." The soldier did not move, but his eyes softened. Just for a heartbeat. Then a sound shattered the fragile quiet. Boots. Voices closing in. The soldier's head snapped toward the door, his body tense. "They found us," he growled. The widow gathered her child, fear filling her veins. The soldier motioned for silence, pressing his back to the wall, rifle raised. The door rattled. Torches flickered through the cracks. "Search inside," a voice barked. "They are here." The widow's breath caught. Her child whimpered softly. The soldier turned, eyes fierce. "You must run if I fall," he whispered. "Promise me." "No," the widow choked, shaking her head. "We cannot without you." "You can," he insisted. "You must for her." The door burst open. Soldiers stormed inside, weapons flashing in the torchlight. The WSOD soldier fired, the sound exploding in the dark. Men fell, shouting, their torches scattering. The widow crouched low, shielding her daughter as bullets cracked through the air. The soldier fought like a storm, each shot precise, each strike fueled by rage, but more came, their numbers endless. He was pushed back, cornered, his breaths heavy, his shoulder bleeding. One soldier grabbed the widow by the arm, yanking her. Upward, she screamed, clutching her child. The soldier turned at the sound, his eyes blazing. With a roar, he cut the man down, pulling the widow free. But in that instant, another soldier seized the child, lifting her into the air. The widow's scream split the night. "My daughter." The commander stepped into the broken doorway, his face lit by the glow of torches. In his hands, the girl struggled weakly, her tiny feet kicking. The widow collapsed to her knees, sobbing. "Please, not her, not my star." The commander sneered, his voice cruel. "You chose the wrong savior, and now you pay the price." He raised his pistol to the child's head, his smile sharp as a blade. The widow screamed, her voice breaking, "No, take me instead." The soldier's chest heaved, his eyes wild, his rifle aimed but his hands trembling. "Let her go," he snarled. The commander's laugh echoed in the ruins. "Make a choice, traitor," he said, his voice slow and mocking. "Save the woman or save the child, but not both." The widow froze, her heart shattering. Her arms wrapped around empty air, her soul burning the soldier's. Finger hovered on the trigger, his body shaking. For the first time, doubt cracked his eyes. He could not see a way to save them both. The commander pressed the pistol harder against the child's head, his voice venom. "Show me your humanity, soldier, and let it kill you." The widow sobbed, her voice raw. "Please, don't choose me, save her, save my daughter." The soldier's breath came fast, his eyes darting between mother and child. The moment stretched, the world holding its breath. The commander smiled, savoring his power. "You see," he hissed, "mercy is death, compassion is weakness, humanity is a curse." The soldier's heart thundered, sweat dripping down his brow. His rifle shook in his hands, the fate of both resting on one impossible choice. And then, with the fire crackling around them and the child's small cry breaking the silence, the soldier finally moved. The factory burned with firelight, shadows dancing against broken walls. The commander stood tall, pistol pressed to the child's head, his eyes sharp with cruelty. The widow knelt on the floor, her body shaking, her voice raw from sobbing. The soldier aimed his rifle, but his hands trembled, torn between two lives. The commander sneered, his words cutting through the smoke. "Choose, soldier, save the woman or save the child, not both." The crowd of soldiers behind him laughed, their faces eager for blood. The widow's voice broke, desperate. "Please, save her, save my star." The soldier's heart pounded like thunder, sweat dripping into his eyes. His finger hovered on the trigger, but doubt burned inside him. For a moment, he saw another child in his memory, a child he could not save long ago, a face that haunted him in every shadow. And now, another girl, was about to be taken, another innocent life crushed, his jaw clenched, his eyes hardened. The trembling stopped. "Not this time," he whispered under his breath. The commander barked. "Decide," his pistol digging harder against the girl's head. The soldier raised his rifle higher, his voice steady. "I choose humanity." And with one sharp motion he fired. The bullet cut through the smoke, striking the commander's arm. The pistol clattered to the ground, the child falling free. The widow screamed and rushed forward, scooping her daughter into her arms. The commander roared with fury, clutching his bleeding arm. "Kill them all!" he shouted, his face twisted in rage. The room exploded with gunfire, sparks flying, bullets striking stone. The soldier moved like a storm, shielding the widow and child, returning fire with unshaken fury. One soldier fell, then another, the commander's men scattering under the relentless assault. The widow held her daughter close, shielding her with her own body. The little girl coughed, but her eyes opened, bright and alive. Her tiny hands clung to her mother's shawl. The widow sobbed with relief, rocking her child. "You are safe, my star, you are safe," she whispered. But the battle was not over. The commander staggered back to his feet, his face a mask of hatred. "You betray your own kind," he spat at the soldier. "For what? For them." The soldier stepped forward, his rifle aimed steady. "For what you will never understand," he growled. The commander sneered, drawing a knife from his belt. "Then die with them," he roared, charging. The clash was brutal, steel against steel, rage against defiance. The commander slashed, the soldier blocked, the knife cutting. Sparks against the rifle, the widow cried out, clutching her child, unable to look away. The soldier's shoulder bled, his strength faltering. But then he saw the widow's eyes filled with hope, and the child's face alive, breathing, no longer fading. And strength surged through him like fire. With one last roar he struck, his rifle butt smashing against the commander's chest. The knife clattered to the floor. The commander fell back, gasping. The soldier raised his weapon, his voice cold and final. "This is the price of your cruelty." He fired, and the commander fell silent, his body crumpling to the ground. The factory grew quiet, the flames crackling, the smoke heavy. The other soldiers froze, their courage broken. One by one, they dropped their weapons and fled into the night. The widow stared, her breath shallow, unable to believe what had happened. The soldier lowered his rifle, his chest heaving, his face pale. He turned to her slowly, his eyes softening. "It's over," he whispered. The widow shook her head, clutching her child close. "No," she said through her tears. "It has only begun." She looked at the soldier, her voice trembling. "You risked everything. You gave everything. Why?" The soldier's eyes lingered on the child, now safe in her mother's arms, her small feet no longer purple, her skin warm again. "Because no one else would," he said, his voice heavy with truth. "And because humanity means nothing if we forget the weak." The widow's tears fell freely, but they were no longer only tears of sorrow. She pressed her lips to her daughter's hair, whispering, "You will live, my star. You will live." The little girl looked at the soldier, her tiny hand reaching out. He hesitated, then took it gently, his rough fingers wrapping around her fragile ones. For the first time in years, warmth spread through his chest, not from fire, not from battle, but from something far greater. The factory roof groaned, flames spreading across the beams. The soldier glanced up, his voice urgent. "We must leave now." The widow nodded, rising with her child in her arms. Together they stepped out into the night, the flames collapsing behind them. The sky above was filled with smoke, but beyond the clouds, stars shone bright. The child pointed weakly at the sky, whispering, "Mother, look, the stars." The widow kissed her forehead, her voice soft. "Yes, my star. The sky is waiting for you." They walked into the darkness, three shadows bound together by fire and fate. Behind them the city burned. Ahead of them lay only uncertainty. But the child's feet were warm now, wrapped in cloth, safe in her mother's arms. The soldier walked beside them, silent, but no longer empty. For he had found something, greater than orders, greater than war. He had found what it meant to be human again. And so the night closed on them, not with despair, but with hope. A hope born from kindness, from sacrifice, from a soldier who chose mercy over cruelty, a widow who refused to surrender, and a child whose small feet no longer carried the color of death. Her child's feet were purple no more,